The city hummed with life, its constant rhythm threading through the streets and into Jane's chest. Adjusting her handbag, she tilted her head back to take in the tall apartment building before her. The cool wind teased at her dress, fitted perfectly to her figure. Passers-by cast admiring glances, but Jane paid no attention. Confidence had always been her shield, but today, it felt a little thinner. This was it, a new city, a new beginning. Her heart beat a little faster as she stepped through the building's doors, pulling her suitcase behind her. Inside, the faint smell of fresh paint mixed with muffled conversations from behind closed doors. The hallway stretched before her, her heels clicking softly on the floor as she approached her apartment. She paused at the door, drew a steadying breath, and raised her hand to knock. But before her knuckles could connect, the door swung open. There he stood, Gerald. Bare-chested, his skin gleaming as though he'd just finished a workout. His dark, mischievous eyes scanned her, the corner of his mouth curling into an unapologetic smirk. "You must be Jane," he said, his voice warm and smooth. Jane's gaze flicked over his shoulder, taking in the messy living room. Her eyes landed on a curvy woman, scantily dressed, fumbling with her bag near the couch. Jane's brow arched slightly as she turned back to Gerald. "Yes," she replied evenly, her voice steady. "And you must be Gerald?" Without waiting for an invitation, she brushed past him into the apartment. The brief warmth of his skin as their arms grazed was unwelcome, though she refused to show it. She set her suitcase down with deliberate care, her expression calm but unyielding. "Welcome," Gerald said, his tone light. He glanced back at the woman by the couch and added casually, "You should probably get going." Jane bit the inside of her cheek to stifle a sigh. She busied herself unpacking, trying to ignore the interaction behind her. Gerald's nonchalant demeanor grated on her nerves, but she reminded herself that she wasn't here to make friends, or enemies. By evening, the apartment was alive with the sounds of music and laughter. Gerald had thrown a party, and Jane, despite her better judgment, decided to make an appearance. Her fitted red dress turned heads the moment she entered the room. Conversations paused, and a ripple of attention followed her as she stepped into the living room. Gerald, caught mid-laugh with a group of friends, froze when he saw her. His smirk returned, but this time, it carried a hint of something deeper. He crossed the room toward her, drink in hand. "Jane," he said, his voice softer now. "You look stunning." "Thank you," she replied politely, though her tone remained distant. Taking the drink he offered, she scanned the room for a quieter spot, but Gerald seemed determined to keep her close. Throughout the evening, his charm worked its magic on the guests, drawing laughter and attention wherever he went. Jane, however, found his relentless flirtations irritating. But beneath her annoyance there was something else, a spark she refused to acknowledge. Near the balcony, Gerald cornered her, his grin as confident as ever. "Having fun?" he asked, leaning against the railing. "Not as much as you, apparently," Jane replied, her arms crossing. "Jealousy doesn't suit you," he teased, inching closer. "And arrogance suits you far too well," she shot back, her voice sharp. "Oh wait, maybe that's why you're so good at it." Their eyes locked, the air between them charged with unspoken tension. Jane's heartbeat quickened, but she refused to let him see her flustered. Turning on her heel, she left him standing there, his curious gaze following her retreat. As the party wound down, Jane found herself alone in the kitchen, tidying up. The clink of glasses and the hum of the refrigerator filled the room's quiet. "You didn't have to do this," Gerald's voice broke the silence. Jane turned to see him leaning against the doorway, shirtless once again. "Someone has to," she replied, keeping her focus on the dishes. He stepped closer, his tone softening. "You're different from anyone I've met before." Jane paused, her grip tightening on the glass in her hand. She turned to face him, her expression guarded. "Good. Because I don't plan on being just another name on your list." For a moment, Gerald's usual playful smirk faded. His gaze softened, and his voice dropped to a sincere murmur. "Who says you'd be just another name?" Her heart skipped a beat, but she quickly masked it with a raised brow. "Good night, Gerald," she said firmly, brushing past him. Later that night, Jane lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Laughter seeped through the walls, followed by softer, more intimate sounds. The muffled moans from Gerald's room made her stomach churn. She squeezed her eyes shut, willing herself to block out the noise. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the kitchen window as Jane made her coffee. Gerald strolled in, his smile easy and carefree. "Morning," he said cheerfully. "Morning," Jane replied curtly, not looking up from her mug. He lingered, watching her with an amused expression, as if he could see through the walls she'd built around herself. Jane had promised herself to focus on her goals, to ignore Gerald's maddening charm. But as days turned into weeks, she began to waver. Their shared glances grew longer, lingering in ways they shouldn't. Moments of silence between them felt heavier, filled with unspoken thoughts. Slowly, the walls they'd both built began to crumble. One evening, Jane escaped to the rooftop, seeking solitude. The city spread out beneath her, its lights twinkling like stars. She leaned against the railing, the cool breeze brushing her face. She didn't notice Gerald approach until he was beside her, holding 2 mugs of tea. "Thought you might like this," he said, offering one. They sat in silence, the night wrapping around them like a blanket. "I'm not who you think I am," Gerald said softly, breaking the quiet. "And who are you?" Jane asked, her voice steady. "Someone who's been waiting to meet someone like you," he replied, his tone sincere. Her breath caught, and for a moment, her guarded expression faltered. "Your trouble?" she murmured. "Maybe," Gerald admitted, smiling. "But maybe I'm the kind you need." Their eyes met, and the world around them seemed to fade. Slowly, Jane leaned closer, their lips meeting in a kiss filled with both passion and promise. Sometimes, love doesn't wait for the perfect moment. It finds you in the chaos, daring you to take a chance. For Jane and Gerald, this was just the beginning, a story written in the stars. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for our next episode, and don't forget to subscribe, comment, like, and share.